If you haven't been paying attention, the world has been getting a little hairy. It might feel like we're moving backwards, some might even say, with, I don't know, a lack of reproductive rights, a de facto government propped up by those who live by the slogan, live fast and break things. But above all, there seems to be a pretty blatant widening between the ultra wealthy and common folk. But chances are, I don't have to tell you that, okay? You know. Whether we're talking about your ability to pay rent, the ability to feel like the individual has some level of autonomy and privacy and agency, or just a baseline sense of security, we seem to be lacking. And we're not just lacking, we're backing our little behind straight into a perverted form of feudalism. Woohoo! That's right. As much as capitalism is my favorite scapegoat, I don't even think we're there anymore. Some might even argue, specifically Yanis Varoufakis, a Greek economist and author of Technofuedalism, What Killed Capitalism, that we have entered an era of what is called technofeudalism. And as much as that sounds like a cool club, it is not. I'm a grumpy young lady, and I'm gonna break down exactly what that means. And by that, I mean read this Reddit comment that explains exactly what that means. Side note, I really hope that we get to keep Reddit. We'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed. A potential shift where large tech platforms act like digital landlords, controlling access to essential online spaces and extracting value from users, which you can think of as digital peasants, through data and attention rather than through traditional market exchanges. While still operating within a capitalist framework, it signifies a move towards a system where the power is concentrated in the hands of the platform owners who dictate the rules and benefit disproportionately from user activity, creating a hierarchical structure reminiscent of feudalism within the digital economy, a change from the more market-driven model often associated with traditional capitalism. Wow, wow, wow. What a lot of words there. And we can tie it all back, right? We all remember learning about feudalism in school. A king would give out fiefs or little grants of land to lords. The lords would provide military protection via knights, and then the peasants or the serfs would, in exchange, live on the land, farm the land, be tied to the land without ownership, and provide the value that sustains this skewed pyramid. Obviously, this is an oversimplification, but we can think of it as a structure in which a small, wealthy minority class owns the land and has strong jurisdiction over common folk who, despite providing most of the value, are left with little power. And you can definitely argue that this is nothing new in America. Even if we don't think about the techno part of techno-feudalism, it's clear that they're not even hiding it anymore. Real estate is an investment vehicle, and not that that's shocking, but real estate that's meant to house families. I would argue that in America are heralded as an investment vehicle first. And we can dial it back and we can look to the 80s where there was a significant turning point in our values or lack thereof around this specifically. Can you guess? Can you guess which firm is behind this? Say it with me, everyone. Blackstone. That's right. That's right. Robert and Schwartzman set their eyes on a package of approximately 3-year-old, 80% occupied garden apartments, multi-unit low-rise dwellings with lawn or garden space in Arkansas and East Texas. In Schwartzman's words, these apartments were producing a steady flow of cash. They were almost new, so we wouldn't have to spend a lot of money fixing them. If we added some debt to the acquisition, we could lift the return on our investment to 23% a year. In addition, we thought we were close to the bottom of the real estate cycle. As the economy recovered and rents would then rise, taking the 45% to 55%, Schwartzman was so enamored of Blackstone's first housing investment that he hungrily inquired as to what other such opportunities existed. After that auction, I asked Joe how much of this stuff was out there. Robert's answer was pregnant with possibility. There's a whole country full. I could scarcely believe it. He reflected in his memoirs, a country full of value and no competition. Are antitrust laws in the room with us? Even if you get a house, right? That the race is not over there, because property taxes, insurance rates, those sorts of things are in many cases outpacing rises in wages. And so for common people, will probably, if they're lucky, get one of these things and maybe hope to get some level of equity. And if not, just a stable place to live for the rest of their days, might not even get that. We can also think about REITs or stocks where you can invest in real estates, right? And when we have so many of these firms backing very important things like pension funds and retirement funds, there's like a catch-all cycle of pain that just keeps happening. But anyway, okay, let's circle back to the tech. I don't think it's unpopular to hate on the big tech guys, but who we should hate on more is Peter Thiel. I think More Perfect Union does an excellent job of talking about this whole subject, talking about Palantir, Peter Thiel's defense AI contracted company that is like so intertwined with our government. So highly recommend checking all that out. But I think it's so important that we gotta take a look at this clip.
That we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
He's saying the quiet part out loud. Tech as a means to amass power is more effective than politics on its own. And so that's exactly what he did. If you don't know, Mr. J.D. Vance is Peter Thiel's little pick. His little pick, he picked this guy. You can also find a variety of banger quotes from Mr. Thiel, like, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. So where exactly do we fit in with all of this? Well, you can probably think of some ways that we're completely reliant on people who literally worship money above all else. All of the subscriptions we have, whether that's for entertainment, whether that's for employment or tools that you use to work, the access to information, how we're delivered information. There's this really great video that I will link that talks in depth about all of this, but even just the internet itself is owned by these big American companies. We don't talk about it enough, and it almost feels like it's too late, but online colonization is a real thing. We have all of the media that we put out, which I don't even think we can assume is properly moderated anymore beyond vetting for retention metrics. It's sequestered to private companies who have literally proven there's no bottoming out when it comes to extracting value and turning people against each other. I feel like I'm talking about this book in every single video, but I finally finished Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. And yeah, okay, WikiLeaks, Myanmar, there's so much in there. There's a reason why Trump and Zuckerberg have tried to remove this book. Read it while you can. Or we can even think about Amazon. I had no idea until watching this video that seller fees have steadily gone up over time. So even on that level, even people who are starting out or trying to build a business, the means of production and the means of consumption are both owned by the same people. I think a lot about how America generally looks sideways at China for having its own internet and system, and it's like, okay, you're gonna sit there and say that while we have the largest chunk of everyone else's. I feel like digital sovereignty is a lot more important than we know, but it's kept so opaque from the general public as to what's going on there. I'm sure nothing great. I think in our era, people often quote the phrase, "You will own nothing and be happy." And fun fact, this is actually something that was said in the World Economic Forum, predicting that by 2030, we would own nothing and be happy. And I came across this paper that made a really great point. Even if we were in a utopian space where everyone acted accordingly and we could just have one big party own and distribute things for people to share, having something is power, having something is leverage, having something is stability. There needs to be a more equal distribution and some regulation that's upheld, but people also need to hold their own. I think all in all, it's a shame, when all of our motives are aligned with profit, or maybe more, it's so profitable to be this evil, we get where we are. So, what can we own? I don't know. But to close it all out, I think we need to take a page out of Sheryl Crow's Soak Up the Sun. My friend, the communist, hosts meetings in his RV. I can't afford his gas, so I'm stuck here watching TV. Whew, read the genius annotations on that banger of a ditty. That's all I got. Here we are. Let me know your thoughts. That's my favorite part. And thank you for 100 subscribers. Wow, we're so grumpy.